Look, if you're a network engineer or a cybersecurity pro, you probably know IPv4 like the back of your hand, right? You've got your trusted perimeter defenses dialed in, your NAT rules set, and your ARP spoofing protections totally locked down. But what if I told you that while you're busy guarding the front door, a completely different, globally routable protocol might literally be bypassing your security controls right now? Today, we are kicking off part 1 of a highly requested 10-part explainer series based on a fantastic tutorial called IPv6 Security, Vulnerabilities, Misconfigurations, and Mitigations. This research comes to us from Virtualization Options LLC, which is a Colorado-based technology research, education, and advisory group. In this first part, we're going to focus strictly on Chapter 1 and break down exactly why your existing IPv4 defenses simply will not protect your IPv6 traffic.
So let's dive into this chapter and uncover how IPv6's automatic network configuration creates some incredibly unique attack vectors. See, in the IPv4 world, we're super used to strict, server-controlled IP assignment. But IPv6, it was designed for massive scale and seamless plug-and-play connectivity. And to pull that off, it introduces a model that relies heavily on local link communication, which is frankly governed by a massive illusion of trust.
Here is our quick roadmap for mastering the IPv6 local link today. We'll cover 1. The SLAAC privacy problem, 2. Rogue router advertisements, 3. Defeating rogue DHCPv6, 4. NDP, the new ARP threat, and 5. Headers, fragments, and floods.
All right, Section 1, the SLA privacy problem. Let's start with the first major structural difference here, how hosts actually get their IP addresses without ever talking to a central server.
This mechanism is called SLAAC, which stands for Stateless Address Auto-Configuration. It allows a host to configure its own IPv6 address entirely by itself. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is that in what's known as EUI64 mode, SLAAC actually takes the physical hardware address, the MAC address of your network interface card, and embeds it directly into the logical IPv6 interface identifier. While that's super efficient for getting a device online quickly, it inherently creates a massive privacy nightmare. I mean, your globally unique physical hardware ID is literally baked right into your IP address. This allows attackers to easily fingerprint devices, map specific network cards, and identify exactly what vendor hardware you're using. And worse, it links your network movements directly to that specific device, no matter where you connect from.
Moving right along to Section 2, Rogue router advertisements. Let's look at how these SLAAC messages actually get distributed and a huge flaw in the protocol's trust model. This brilliantly illustrates a textbook man-in-the-middle attack path. SAAC relies heavily on router advertisement, or RA, messages. But because the base protocol requires absolutely zero authentication, and I mean zero built-in authentication whatsoever, it just trusts these messages by default. So, step 1, literally any host on a link can send out a forged router advertisement, and the target hosts will just blindly trust it and update their gateway. Step 2, those hosts immediately start directing all their traffic to the attacker's gateway. And step 3, the attacker easily intercepts, modifies, or just drops that traffic entirely.
So how do we shut this down? Well, you can't rely on endpoint firewalls for this. You absolutely must deploy RA Guard, which is defined in RFC 6105 and 7113 directly on your local switches. This ensures that the switch physically blocks any RA messages trying to enter through non-router ports, keeping authoritative network configs restricted strictly to your legitimate infrastructure.
Okay, Section 3, Defeating Rogue DHCP-v6. Let's switch gears to stateful configuration and see how rogue attacks play out there.
Now, even if you decide to use DHCP-v6 instead of SLAAC, you definitely aren't out of the woods. This is the exact IPv6 equivalent of a rogue DHCP server attack in IPv4. Just like in v4, IPv6 clients have no built-in way to authenticate DHCP-v6 responses. They are going to blindly accept the very first valid DHCP-v6 reply they get. That makes it incredibly trivial for an attacker to just race your legitimate server and feed poisoned configurations to your clients before you even know what happened.
The fix here is DHCP-v6 Shield. You enable this on your switches to make sure server responses are restricted to trusted ports only. But you know what's really dangerous about this? This defense is drastically underdeployed compared to its IPv4 equivalent. You probably have DHCP snooping turned on everywhere in your IPv4 environment right now, for sure. But without DHCP v6 Shield, every single client on that same network segment is at risk of silently receiving poisoned IPv6 configs.
Next up, Section 4, NDP, or the new ARP threat. Let's look at how devices actually find each other on the local network. So we have the Neighbor Discovery Protocol, or NDP. This effectively replaces ARP, and it handles all your critical local link operations. It manages router discovery, prefix advertisements, checking for duplicate IP addresses, and monitoring to see if neighbors are reachable. It's essentially the absolute backbone of local IPv6 traffic routing.
But it suffers from the exact same foundational trust issues we've been talking about. This punchy fact right here is probably your biggest blind spot. Just like ARP, NDP assumes all nodes on a local link are completely trustworthy. Yep, once again, zero built-in authentication.
However, the stakes are so much higher now. Unlike ARP, which really just handles IP to MAC address resolution, forged NDP messages have a drastically wider impact. Because NDP has so many different message types, router solicitations, redirects, neighbor advertisements, a single attacker crafting forged NDP messages can disrupt routing, hijack your gateway selection, or even intentionally trigger duplicate address detection failures to cause massive denial of service across the entire local link.
And finally, Section 5, Headers, Fragments, and Floods. Let's escalate this from the local link and look at how IPv6 traffic can actively evade your perimeter defenses.
Because IPv6 handles packet headers and fragmentation very differently than IPv4, one of the most dangerous tools for an attacker is the extension header, specifically Routing Header 0, or RH0. Attackers can actually craft long chains of these extension headers to confuse stateless firewalls, basically burying the malicious payload deeper in the packet than the firewall is willing to look. This enables nasty traffic amplification attacks and lets attackers forcefully source route traffic through nodes they control, totally bypassing your security rules. Now, even though RH0 was officially deeply deprecated way back in 2007, a lot of legacy devices on your network might still happily process it.
You absolutely cannot assume your firewall just ignores RH0 by default. You have to explicitly configure your perimeter devices to drop all packets containing RH0. There is literally no legitimate modern use case for it. Plus, you really need to actively audit your router and firewall configs to ensure it is explicitly rejected, not just passively ignored.
Another major evasion technique you need to watch for is the tiny fragment attack. Attackers exploit how IPv6 fragmentation works by crafting a maliciously tiny first fragment. It's so small that the actual TCP or UDP headers get pushed into the subsequent fragments. So your stateless firewall or intrusion detection system sees this harmless-looking first fragment and just allows the whole flow through without ever actually inspecting those hidden malicious headers.
Operationally, the most effective mitigation here is straightforward. Just drop fragmented IPv6 packets right at the perimeter edge. In modern networks, fragmented traffic flowing to or from edge services is rarely ever legitimate, and it almost always indicates an evasion attempt. Lastly, let's talk about floods. In IPv4, if you get hit with an ICMP ping flood, you might just panic and write a rule to deny all ICMP traffic at the edge, right? Well, remember, unlike IPv4, you cannot just indiscriminately block ICMP v6. Doing that will immediately break core network routing functions like neighbor discovery and path MTU discovery. It breaks everything. So to survive an ICMP v6 flood, specifically type 128 echo requests, you've got to switch from a denial mindset to intelligent rate limiting. You need to explicitly validate packet too big messages against active connections, and you have to rely heavily on stateful firewalls to correlate ICMP v6 errors with existing sessions before your systems actually act on them. To wrap up, if you take away absolutely nothing else from this explainer today, please remember this. IPv6 creates a totally separate attack surface. Your mature, battle-tested IPv4 defenses do not automatically translate to IPv6. This protocol introduces entirely new vulnerabilities governed by an illusion of trust on the local link, and it requires completely distinct monitoring, switch-level protections, and perimeter logic. So, I'll leave you with this to consider. Just how vulnerable is your network right now to a protocol that is likely already enabled by default on practically all your operating systems? Take a moment and really think about that. Go check your switch and firewall configs today, and join us next time for part 2, where we're going to dive even deeper into the hidden misconfigurations that are putting modern networks at risk. See you then.